If you're a parent, you know this feeling. It is 3 a.m., the baby's crying, again, and you are just so tired you could probably cry yourself, right? The whole world of baby sleep is just a mess of conflicting advice, really strong opinions, and so much confusion. So, okay, let's cut through all that noise. We're going to create a clear guide using science and some really practical steps to help everyone, hopefully, get some rest.
This right here, this is the question at the very heart of the whole debate, isn't it? I mean, this is the thing that keeps so many parents up at night, just totally worried they're making the wrong call. Are you teaching your baby a valuable life skill, or are you doing something that could actually hurt them? That is a really heavy weight to carry.
And the conversation almost always gets shoved into these two extreme corners. Over here, you've got this idea of a super rigid, just let them cry it out method, and over here, you have the reality of just endless, sleepless nights with a baby who needs you to rock them back to sleep every 45 minutes. It feels like you have to pick a side, but what if there's a more balanced, more informed way to think about this?
That's exactly what we're going to dig into first. We really need to separate the genuine fears from the myths, and just get a super clear picture of what we're even talking about.
Okay, so check this out. I think this is really interesting. It's the language. A lot of the sources we looked at suggest a better term is sleep learning. And that little change reframes the entire process. See, it's not about some rigid, punishing training. It's about gently and consistently teaching your baby a new skill, the incredible skill of soothing themselves to sleep.
So, let's move on to the actual evidence. Let's just forget the anecdotes and the Facebook comments for a second. What does the real medical research say about whether this stuff works, and maybe more importantly, whether it's safe?
This is always the first hurdle, right? For any exhausted parent. You're wondering, is all this effort, all this emotional energy, is it even going to be worth it? Are we actually going to get more sleep out of this?
Well, the answer from the research is a pretty resounding yes. A huge systematic review, that's basically a study of a whole bunch of other studies, found that in almost 89% of cases, these methods led to significant improvements. And that means babies fell asleep faster, they woke up less, and they stayed asleep longer.
And this chart illustrates something really key. It's not just about one single rigid method. The research shows that all kinds of different approaches, from the cry-it-out method to methods where a parent stays in the room to the graduated check-ins you might know as the Ferber method, they all show positive results. The real key seems to be just having a consistent method.
Okay, so we know it can work, but that brings us to the much more emotional, much more important question. Is it harmful? This is the fear that stops so many parents right in their tracks. Are you damaging your bond with your baby? Are you causing them some kind of toxic stress? Let's just be really, really clear on this. According to all the big investigations reviewed in our source material, that fear, it's just not supported by the data. Studies have followed kids for up to 5 years after their parents did sleep learning, and they have not found any evidence of harm to the parent-child bond or to the child's long-term emotional health.
But what about, biological stress? Well, researchers looked at that directly. They measured cortisol, which is the body's main stress hormone. And in 2 really important studies, they found that the baby's cortisol levels did not significantly spike during these interventions. And get this, in one of the studies, it was the mother's cortisol levels that actually went down by day 3, probably because, the baby was crying less.
So, here's the crucial point. What if we're looking at the crying all wrong? In developmental psychology, there's this concept called optimal frustration. It's the idea that learning to tolerate a manageable amount of frustration is actually essential for growing up. It's how kids learn to regulate their own emotions and build resilience. This isn't about abandonment, it's about giving them a supported chance to learn a new skill.
All right, so now that we've gone through the science, let's get practical. Section 3, a practical 6-step guide. How do you, actually do this? We're going to walk through a really clear guide based on the methods we've been talking about.
Okay, here they are, the 6 key steps. First up, daytime nutrition. We got to make sure baby is full during the day. Second, the sleep environment, making the crib a dark, boring place that's only for sleep. Third is a predictable bedtime routine, something that signals it's time to wind down. Fourth is the action, that's the check-in plan. Fifth is having a plan for night wakings, so you're not trying to make decisions at 2 in the morning. And finally, the glue that holds this whole thing together, consistency.
Step 1 is absolutely the foundation. You just can't expect a baby to sleep through the night if they're hungry. So the goal is to front-load all their calories during the day. Make sure they're getting everything they need between sunrise and sunset, so they just don't have that physiological need to wake up for food in the middle of the night.
Now for the nitty-gritty. Step 4, the action. This is a picture of what a graduated check-in method looks like. So, after your whole bedtime routine, you put your baby down in their crib awake, you leave the room, and you start a timer for 5 minutes. If they're still crying when it goes off, you go in for a quick check-in. Then, the next time, the interval is 10 minutes. After that, it's 15, and you just stick with 15-minute intervals for any checks you have to do after that.
So what do you actually do during that check-in? The rules are really simple, and they're all designed to reassure your baby without accidentally undoing the learning. Keep it super brief, like under 30 seconds. Use your calm, reassuring voice. Maybe place a firm hand on their back, but you do not pick them up. The whole goal is just to communicate, hey, I'm here, you are safe, and you've got this.
And that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. It doesn't really matter which evidence-based method you pick if you only stick with it for one night. Babies learn through repetition, through predictability. Your consistency is the signal that helps them understand this new routine. It's a team effort for sure, and you both have to be committed.
So, after looking at the science and the practical steps, where does that leave all of us? Well, it leaves us with an informed, confident choice. The whole idea is to empower you to make the right call for your family.
You know, the point of all this isn't to tell you that you have to do this. Not at all. The point is to give you the data so you can make a choice that is informed by evidence, not one that's driven by fear or shame that you might feel scrolling through social media. What works for one family might not work for yours, and that is absolutely okay.
I just love this final piece of wisdom from our source. It's this idea of differential responsiveness. Parenting isn't a static thing, right? What a tiny newborn needs is totally different from what a 6-month-old needs. And sometimes the most responsive, most loving thing you can do is to actually step back just a little bit, to let them learn a new skill.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. We tend to see crying only as a signal of distress. But what if, in this very specific, safe, and loving situation, it's also the sound of learning? What if this whole process is one of the very first ways that you teach your child that they are capable, that they are resilient, and that they can absolutely handle challenges? It's a pretty powerful thought.